everybody to our virtual event, Empowering Indigenous Mayan Girls Through a Holistic Approach to Education and the Impact of Indigenous Female Leadership. This is being hosted by the Healthcare Business Women's Association and the affinity group Women in Healthcare Give Back. My name is Wendy Morahan. I am part of the Healthcare Business Women's Association, and I'm on the board for the Women in Healthcare Give Back affinity group. And I'm thrilled to be here today hosting this panel. Our quick agenda is an introduction by myself. I would like to tell everybody a little bit about Women in Healthcare Give Back, about a global organization we're working with this year called Women Deliver, and about our co-panelists today, the MAIA Organization. Our panel discussion is really going to be focused on three key things: the MAIA Organization's mission and approach to the education of Indigenous Mayan girls in Guatemala. We're going to spend a little time talking about the impact of leading an organization like MAIA with Indigenous female leadership. And then we're going to touch a little bit on the victim-hero complex in philanthropy. I'll close us out with a few closing remarks and a call to action. But for the most part, we will spend our time, in the panel discussion. This is our disclaimer. Really, the views and opinions expressed are those of the speakers and don't express the views or opinions of our employers, of the HBA, or of Women Deliver. Introducing Women in Healthcare Give Back very quickly. We Give Back is, like I mentioned, an affinity group within Healthcare Business Women's Association. It's the proud recipient and winner of the Global Innovation Award from the HBA, and received this award really within its first 18 months of inception. We Give Back is focused on developing bold and authentic women leaders within the HBA and really using those leaders to give back to our global communities by purpose-driven programming. I love our motto: we give back together, we grow together, we lift the world together. And I've been part of this organization for the last 2.5 years, and I can truly attest to the fact that it is a very giving organization and really focused on lifting our communities, lifting other leaders, lifting the world. This year in 2022, Women in Healthcare Give Back has a program called Amplify Your Impact. We are working on developing our leadership and communication skills by designing virtual events like you're seeing today that are highlighting gender equality focused nonprofit organizations. These virtual events will be made available to the Healthcare Business Women's Association 2022 annual conference, and they will be made available on Women Deliver's Global Dialogue platform that's launching in January 2023. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Women Deliver organization, Women Deliver hosts the world's biggest conference on gender inequality. They're seen as a global advisor and thought leader in this space, with a voice at the United Nations and within many other organizations spanning both the public and private domains. Women Deliver leads a variety of programs to engage youth in making change in their countries, to elevate the sustainable development goals and to amplify overall global movement for gender equality. Their signature triennial conference in 2019 saw greater than 8,000 attendees across 169 countries. So really a massive global conference. These conferences include decision makers from civil society, government, the private sector, and international agencies, working alongside activists, advocates, journalists, all trying to work together to identify solutions and drive change. In 2019, if you look at the participants in the satellite events and in the online platform, Women Deliver conference saw 200,000 participants. So the ability to amplify voices is just massive with Women Deliver. The images you see on the screen are actually from the 2019 event. And what we are preparing for and delivering virtual events for is the 2023 Triennial Global Conference with Women Deliver. Most importantly for today, I'd like to introduce a fantastic and impactful organization called MAIA. MAIA is an organization based in Guatemala that's focused on unlocking and maximizing the potential of young Indigenous girls, helping to ensure a very underserved population has the tools to achieve their dreams. MAIA is an organization led by Indigenous women for Indigenous women. And it's empowering generations of young women through an educational model that has an equal focus on not only academics, but culture, identity, socio-emotional intelligence, personal development, and family engagement. One of MAIA's principal programs is the MAIA Impact School, Central America's first secondary school specifically designed to connect the talents of these rural Indigenous young girls with the opportunities of the 21st century. I'm thrilled to welcome two leaders from the MAIA organization that are here with us today to discuss the MAIA Impact School, starting with Lydia Oshie. Lydia is a key member of the MAIA leadership team, fulfilling the role of Director of Community Engagement. As a MAIA Ketchikel woman, Lydia has been a pioneer herself in many, many ways. Her education spans multiple degrees from global institutions, including the US and Taiwan. She's passionate about education, Indigenous leadership, the environment, and gender equality, making her the perfect match for not only MAIA leadership, but for our conversation today. So welcome, Lydia. Would you like to take just a minute to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Wendy. Yes, this is such an honor to represent MAIA in this event. And as you mentioned, I'm from Puaquil, a small village in Chimaltenango in the center region of Guatemala. And I'm delighted to be with you today.
Thank you so much. And also with us from the MAIA organization is Travis Ning. Travis has been part of the MAIA organization for 13 years, I believe, since its inception. Currently acting as the executive director of MAIA, but also looking forward to transitioning his leadership to support MAIA's mission of having Indigenous female leadership at the helm. Travis has been involved in philanthropy, I believe, for most of his life, including as a young child, watching and joining as his family embarked on multiple philanthropic adventures. Travis, take a minute to introduce yourself, please.
Thanks, Wendy. Hi, everyone. I'm Travis. I'm calling from my porch here in Guatemala. I'm thankful it's not raining yet, and just an honor to be here and to join this conversation.
Beautiful. Thank you so much and welcome. I am going to transition us away from slides and put us in kind of the panel discussion mode. In the meantime, Carol Vucetta is here with us, also with the We Give Back organization. Carol, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, Wendy, thank you so much. So yes, I'm Carol Vucetta, and I'm so happy to be participating in this program today. I have been really inspired by the work being done by the MAIA organization to really change the impact and the future for these Indigenous girls in Guatemala. And to be doing this on behalf of the HBA Give Back program, it just makes me so proud. So thank you for allowing me to be on this program with you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carol. I'm going to kick us off and really focus on talking a little bit about MAIA and the MAIA Impact School. I think that as I was learning about the MAIA organization, listening to podcasts, looking at the website, I was really struck by some statistics that, I think from my background, and I think sometimes from, my privileged perspective in the US, were really astounding to me, which is in Guatemala, less than 20% of girls go on to get a high school education and less than 2% get a college education. And, that's really just very astounding to me in a sad way, and drew me to MAIA's mission and organization. So Lydia, I wanted to ask you just to give us a little bit of history of MAIA and how did MAIA start and where are you today?
Thank you, Wendy. Yes, so a little bit of a background on how MAIA started. So it started about 2007 from a microcredit program. And the program was also working on post-conflict places. So Guatemala, of course, it's a post-conflict place, and peace accords were signed in 1996. And after that, Mayan women and indigenous population gained some rights. And so this program was working with women who were already, most of them, married. And although the microcredit program was very successful and powerful, but in a sense, it was too late for some women who were already mothering and having big responsibilities to really take advantage and to change their future. And so they learn, and the founders learned that women would invest mainly on the education of their children, the health, and sometimes reinvest a little bit in a small business. However, it seemed like a perfect opportunity for the founders to focus on education given on the need. And another key element of this, Wendy, it's because if a family had some means of supporting a child to go to school, they will prioritize boys. So girls would always be left behind. So that's why from 2007, the mentorship program was open. And then later on, they also received scholarships to support young girls to go to middle school and high school. But what happened then, it's like they were graduating from high school, but because the system of education wasn't really developing the talent of these young women, so they could not really go to university, or they would not be able to develop all the abilities and knowledge that they needed to do so. So that's why in about 2015, the leadership team started thinking, what if we have a school, we could have our academic program, the mentorship program, we could invest in educators and they could have training. So from that time, in 2017, the MAIA Impact School was open. We started with a group of 50 students, and right now we have close to 300 students after 6 years of working in the school. So this is our 6th year.
Wow, that's amazing. From 50 to 300 since 2017. And I know, and I think I mentioned previously, you call your students Girl Pioneers, which I absolutely love. But so tell us a little bit about the Girl Pioneers themselves. Who are they? What ages do they go to the school?
Yes, so I would describe them as the most dedicated, bold, and really conscious young girls who are really taking this challenge forward, and they have the vision to have a better country, and that they have also the opportunity to support the change of Guatemala. And however, I think the most difficult thing as well is that they themselves, and as most of us of the leadership team as well, have so many challenges around. And we speak about 4 specific type of challenges or discrimination. And this is because they are girls, they are indigenous, they live in rural communities, and they are poor. So from moment 0, I call it sometimes, because since the moment they are born, they have to lead. They have to lead with this lack of resources, lack of opportunities. Although with all these challenges, now they're really working towards a way to transform not only the situation of their families, but also to lead a transformational change in Guatemala.
Yeah, I think they call that the quadruple risk, right? The rural, female, poor, and Indigenous.
And yes, and sorry, because I forgot. And yeah, the reason why we call them pioneer, most of them are the first one in their families to go to secondary school and high school, compared to the average of the years of schooling of their parents, that it's usually 3 years of elementary school. So this is why they are the first one to go to school, the first one to learn a second, third language, the first one to, in reality, like challenge the status quo of our communities and the country.
Yeah, I love that first two concept. Do the girls understand what it means, like the importance of being a pioneer in their communities and in Guatemala?
That's a nice question, Wendy. And actually, I think they do. They have felt what it means to have these challenges. And we have also a selection process. And in the selection process, it really stands out the fact that they understand that there are so many challenges in their communities, but they also see themselves as key to make a change. So I would say, compared to me when I was 12 years old, they are way more aware of the situation, of why we're having this limitation and what it takes to really support and make a shift, and to create like opportunities and to support the development of the country.
Yeah, and bravery, right? They sound like very brave, and I know that goes along with pioneers, right? You've got to have a lot of courage to go out there and be the first at things, as well as I'm sure their families have to be quite brave. How do you work with and involve the parents of the girl pioneers?
We have especially this social emotional program, Wendy, that's specifically working with parents and girl pioneers. But I think part of this is also because our selection team does a wonderful job connecting with local schools of the public system and sharing about the opportunity of scholarship. So this is a call on invite to apply. And then like the parents are given enough information what it takes to be in school, because in reality, this is also like a big challenge for them. And this is a 6-year commitment that we are like they have with us. So that's really important just for parents to see the value of education, and also like to be there for their daughters throughout these 6 years. So with this information, of course, at the beginning, they have a lot of questions, and sometimes they also have doubts, because it's a huge challenge just to be there for you. But then once the team gain trust, and our team, it's also close to 95% of women and Indigenous. So that also it's giving us a huge advantage as how to communicate with the parents, because most of them do not speak Spanish. So they mainly communicate in Cachiquel, and that's really fabulous for like just a rapport and yes, just the communication with the parents. And so what they do is they do visits to the home of the families, and we would ask both of the parents to be present. And most of the cases, all the kids are also there. So the mentors are really key in this process, because they are the ones who develop this relationship. And as we develop this relationship in the years with us, they are also learning about very important topics such as women's rights, sexual health education, and the competencies that MAIA speaks about and has in place at school. So by giving them these resources, tools, and knowledge, so we're really working together. So this is a really team effort. in order to support the girl pioneer stays in school and for her to reach her goals for the future. So that's the work that our team does with the families.
Yeah, that's really amazing and important, right? If you don't have the support of the families. How have, these are rural, poverty-stricken communities. How have the girls' communities responded to, them going off and achieving these kind of educational goals?
I'm sorry, Wendy, I missed the first part. How the girls or
How their communities have
Oh.
responded to them?
Yeah, this is also a really nice question and happy to answer, because when MAIA started in 2017, we did not have a school. And so there is also mistrust in the communities towards organizations or NGOs sometimes because of the history of the country. And in reality, we do face a lot of discrimination. So it's not only machismo, but there is discrimination. And so at the beginning, it was really hard even to get girls applying to school because there was no physical school or no credibility by the community of a school, like such a program that we were implementing or talking about. But after like this years, it's been 6 years. So the team has done an excellent work working with the leaders, calling for applications from the schools. And what we're seeing now is like, and mainly because of the work that girl pioneers are doing, some of they are implementing projects, but also we run a program called La Voz de MAIA al Mundo. That's the voice of MAIA to the world. And who speaks and who conducts this program are the girl pioneers. So when the communities see these young women like really running the program, interviewing leaders of the country, like the US ambassador or figures that are usually not very reachable. So they really see like the difference in the impact that education is making in the lives of girl pioneers, not only through these opportunities, but like learning a third language or like the way that they develop and speak the critical questions that they are making. I think that's what it's giving us credibility to the community. And now we could say, luckily, after 6 years, we get sometimes like emails asking also for some advice or wanting to visit the school. And so we're very proud to be able to share some of the learning that MAIA has had over the years.
That's a lot to be incredibly proud of, and for the girls to be proud of as well. What are some examples of, how you've seen girl pioneers change their lives?
There are many examples, Wendy, and I will try to point out like 2 or 3 of them. Some of the very common examples is because they are the first, like the older sister, so they support the younger siblings, like to do homework and like school projects and things like that. But we also see like, for example, Claudia, she is running a project of a community garden with women. And so at the beginning, also seeing her like leading women and like older women. And she is like 16 years old. It's really amazing just to see like the things that she's doing. And then also we see girls such as Elvira, who also applied for a scholarship last year. And this year she was also, she has a confirmation that she received a full scholarship to study in the States. So we see that they are really breaking paradigms in their communities, and also some of them are, doing different things.
Yeah, that is just fantastic. So, and I love you mentioned Claudia and leading women older than herself in that community garden. That's That's beautiful. So it's clear you're actually developing leaders and mentors, for the future. So do you have any examples of like significant impact in their communities and in their families?
What we're seeing in the families, Wendy, it's like at least because this is like a 6-year long program. So we're also seeing parents. I think these are like maybe the nicest thing that we get, and we don't really monitor some of this, but we hear parents saying like they have a change or switch habits, such as like supporting all the rest of their daughters and sons. So not only the daughters, but being really more committed to the education of the parents. And we also see parents, I think this is like very valuable because it's a process and sometimes it's hard to see the results. But when you heard and listen to a parent saying like, señor, and that would be like teacher, yeah, I don't mind if the meeting is in Sunday, I will be supporting my daughter. We are already starting to put aside some funding so she can go to university. So you see that their dreams are for the family, like in working together. So we already have a plan for her to go to university because we really want her to go to university. So this shift, like on not only like how much support they're giving, but actually doing it and thinking about the future as a family. I think this is like the changes that I think just surprise you and also fulfill your heart because of this happening.
Oh, that's just so wonderful to hear. That's just inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing that. And this has a whole lot to do with the leadership, right? And all that you guys have done. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about that because I know that the organization, MAIA, wasn't always run by Indigenous women, and you've made a conscious effort to change that. And I want to hear, why, and really why you'd made the change, like what was happening before, why you made the change, and then why you think that is so important in this program.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. I think there are like a few factors and reasons why it's so important. I think for the like general sustainability of the program, it's really important to have a local team.
Yeah.
And especially because of the complexity of the history of Guatemala. And it's not just about like a different social status or different gender, but there is like these elements of gender, unbalance of power and discriminations. So for this, it's very, we feel like Indigenous communities, we have been really told that we're the problem of the situation of Guatemala, that things do not progress because of us. But then, so you heard this so constantly in the houses, women are the problem, Indigenous community. So it really gets to you at the very personal level, like your dignity. So it really takes a lot of efforts trying to just to change that at a personal level. And I think this is why it's so important by seeing other women like look like you doing the same thing, like the mirror effect. And it was also key for me when I was growing up, like seeing this first lady, her name is Calixta, in my town, like she was speaking English. And that I had no idea what English was back then when I was little, or what was the use of another language. But it was just so amazing to see somebody doing different things. And then, but the other piece of this, it's because we coming from the same context, it really gets to you, like you really see the challenges, how they affect you, but we have also overcome and still like overcoming these challenges. So I think that's really important because it's not just about giving advices, but we have already broken this cycles. And so all the team is really proud to also like work in this program because it's something that we believe, and also education has been key for us to gain different like opportunities, but also to change our trajectory.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I imagine you're not alone. I'm sure that many other nonprofits have this struggle that they deal with. And I was going to ask Travis, do you have any advice to share for other nonprofits in a similar situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a process, and I think there's a lot of questions that I think all of us can ask. And in the world of international NGOs, we have this really tired cliche, which is, our job is to work ourselves out of a job. Like it's like the slogan on everybody's wall, right? And then you look around and you see people in organizations that are just, celebrating their 40th anniversary, 60th anniversary, and how can you make that more than just an aspirational statement? And
Yeah,
I think what that takes is a plan of action. Like if you're going to do it, if you're going to say it, then you got to do it. And if you're not going to do it, then just stop saying it. But I think some of the things that you look at that seem to be immobile barriers around organizational structure, the traditional structure of an organization like MAIA would be that there'd be a US office, a US board, and that's where the resources are. And therefore that's where the leadership is. And that's the proximity to the donors. And it's really very comfortable. And there's a reason why most organizations are constituted that way. And then the money flows to Guatemala and the people on the field do the work. And that's just the default mode. But I think there are elements of that structure that just, if you structure it where the leadership's in the US, well, you're never going to get out of that job. Like you just made it impossible. Or if all your board members are in the United States, well, then again, it's never going to happen. So we've created these barriers for ourselves, but they're mobile. I think there's just a piece that we just never asked the question, like, can we move this? And it turns out you can. So I think the question of other nonprofits is like, look around at some of those barriers that seem like fixed objects, but they're boulders, but they move. And I think if you just kind of push around on them and look around and see which boulders have been pushed around in other areas, the path is not as difficult as it sounds.
Yeah, it's really good advice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And when we spoke early, Travis, you talked about this victim hero complex. So, and when we talked about it, I thought, you know what, I'm pretty convinced that many of us suffer from this. And so I was hoping you could describe for the audience what is meant by the victim hero complex.
If you think of like in our world, everyone's lives, like your most dysfunctional relationships, oftentimes that's what's happening in your most dysfunctional friendships, family relationships, whatever that is. And I think it certainly applies to the area of do-gooding. We have a lot of people, most people have really amazing and positive intentions. I think sometimes those intentions are convoluted and contorted by this dynamic that you described, which is the victim and the hero complex, which people love to feel heroic. I love to feel heroic. Who doesn't want to feel heroic? Like it feels amazing, right? And that feeling that you have after you've done something for someone is fantastic. But think of I have some adolescent boys, so the Marvel universe is really relevant in my life. But think to be a hero, you require a victim. Oftentimes, more often than not, you require a victim. A hero saves a victim, and I think just having that mindset of I'm going to feel that feeling. Well, then by necessity, I require someone to be beneath me that I can help. And when we apply that to whether that's our own philanthropy, our own actions, particularly abroad, I think it gets more acute, and we get more excited for that feeling. It's often the service learning things that we want our kids to do, and I think that it's just worth reflecting, like ultimately, who is this for and what is this for? And is this all about me getting that feeling? And if it is, there's a really good chance that that's destructive. And I'm guilty of it all the time. Like, I think that's the thing. You confess to it and I will confess to it too. It's a really convenient, and I think our culture really gravitates more towards that. And it's just it's actually a pretty toxic lens through which to view supporting, particularly internationally, because I think we're a little more blind to it when we work abroad.
I totally agree. And half the battle is just recognizing it, right? Recognizing it, really looking internally, yes, we do all this because we want to help, or do we do it because it makes us feel good? And I think that's really important to reflect on. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure there's situations also where good intentions can have detrimental impact on an organization or on people, and especially on young girls like the girls at MAIA. Can you share a little situations that you've talked about before where even really good intentions have gone wrong?
Sure, we have a story in MAIA, and again, I think any one of us could have easily been this person. So I'm not, I want to single this person out because I could have easily done the same thing. When visitors come to MAIA, and we do get a lot of visitors, we always have folks sign up a policy of just rules of engagement with our students and child protection policy. And 99.9% of the people always abide by this policy without any issues at all. In this case, when we were going out to the home of one of the girl pioneers, and it's a really powerful experience, as Lydia was describing earlier, the way a family interacts, and it's so inspirational, and yet it's really daunting when you see the quadruple discrimination up close, like how steep this climb is going to be. And this person was very moved, obviously, and just acted a little bit on impulse, acted a little bit on that hero victim dynamic. I think really wanted to a certain degree placate this in a way pain and inspiration at the same time, the intensity of the moment, and slipped $100 bill into this girl's school backpack when she wasn't looking, when they were in her home. And then we left, no one was, and we were none the wiser. We got back in the van, we drove back. This person flew out back to the United States the next morning. And a couple of days later, the mother of this girl pioneer is going through her backpack and discovers $100 bill in the backpack and asks the girl, like, where did you get a $100 bill? Like, this is insane. And the girl honestly replies saying, I have no idea where that's not mine. I don't know where that came from. And the debate begins. This argument ensues of how do you get $100? And the girl, trying to plead her case that she has no idea how she got $100, and the mother thinking the worst, and thoughts going to more, acts of prostitution and what have you been doing to earn money? And you can imagine the donor flying off back to their home with this one truth, this story in their head, when in actuality they had inadvertently left a time bomb in this girl's backpack that blew up, and the girl was kicked out of the home. The parents were so embarrassed and ashamed. And luckily MAIA was there and the mentor from MAIA came back and could put it all together. But I know that was the last thing that person wanted to do. That was the absolute last thing they wanted to do. And yet their good intentions inadvertently detonated this time bomb that they never even knew they did, and I think it just requires that forethought, and it's hard. I think it is really difficult as someone who wants to do so much just good to be, and you're not saying don't do it at all. Like that $100 has a place in this world for sure.
Right.
And that girl has a $100 need for sure. It's just how we calibrate those things. And I think it requires dialogue and it requires a conversation. And sometimes that's awkward. It's almost always awkward. But that's how we learn and that's how we get better at this.
Yeah, and you're right. No one would ever want that. I'm sorry, Lydia.
Yes, I wanted to add an example. As Travis was mentioning, I'm very new to the partnership piece of MAIA, but one of the experience that we have had, like sometimes with other organizations, is like there is opportunities for us to receive. And I remember one training that we were going to get, and they were offering like this very experienced and really knowledgeable people to teach at the school with us. But it was just so hard for us to explain that the language wasn't really helping, because what they wanted to do is like they wanted to teach in English and then have another translation into Spanish. But I guess there was so much that they didn't know. And but it was hard for our students because they were just learning Spanish. So it's not just even like this. Yeah, so it was like a third language, and it's really hard to keep like that tension of like 12 years old, being new to the school, plus adding all these elements for them wasn't really very efficient. So, but it was just so hard for us to explain, I mean, why we would not want this training. And it's not just because we did not want it, it's just because it wasn't really efficient and necessary to go through this process for the students. So yeah, just wanted to add to the experience.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. That's another area where, again, good intentions, right? So what would you suggest this goes to either one of you, better ways that we could think about making an impact.
It feels like, and I think MAIA, we will always feel like we're really new at trying to trailblaze into this conversation. Certainly, we are not alone in trying to figure this out. But it is a relatively new conversation in the space of philanthropy, and the more I think about it, the more we work on it. It's really about the word permission comes to mind for me a lot. Like, how can you get permission? And for an organization like MAIA, it's what we're looking for from a potential donor is, do we have permission to really be truthful with you and talk about what's going on? In the case of Lydia's just recent example, like if we have permission to just speak, how can we calibrate your intentions with what we want? And that really requires an honest dialogue to find a fit. Oftentimes organizations operate in the absence of permission. And so the assumption is, well, the donor, they have what they want to do it. There's nothing we can do. We don't have access to that type of honesty. So we just operate dancing around this person all the time. And they have no idea how much we're dancing around them. And I think what the big challenge is, how can a donor or an organization on both sides find the moments of permission, of can we check in an honest way and say, hey, this isn't really working, or that's an amazing gift you're offering us. And can I make a few observations about it to make it even higher impact? And one of those observations would be like, can you make that unrestricted? Can you just trust us to put it where it's needed most versus telling us where it's needed most? Trust someone like Lydia to know where the need is, because obviously she's the closest to knowing what that would be, versus you up in the city in the United States deciding what the need is. I think but it sounds easy, but finding those spaces that have never existed and in a tremendously complex power dynamic is challenging. And so I think that's the space we all want to get to, is a space of more candor and really an impact focused conversation. Like, what can we all do to really align this to make it the highest impact intervention that we can?
So I'm curious, do you share your MAIA learnings and your different nonprofit learnings about, because that actually reminds me of that whole victim hero complex in play with big donors, right? They have a vision and a mission in mind, rather than going to you for that. But do you talk to other nonprofits about this, and do you share the learnings?
I think it's a new conversation, but certainly there's a groundswell, and I've seen it come a long way. I think a part of the challenge of that conversation, it's always been unfortunately pretty prevalent, has been a scarcity mindset among organizations. So nonprofits being very fearful of each other, because the assumption is, well, I'm going to dance around that donor because if I don't, someone else will, and they're going to get my money. And so that it takes too much courage, or it's too much risk to actually engage with that donor. Whereas if two or three organizations go together to try and find secure that permission from that donor, there's strength in numbers. And I think that's been a really, really interesting dynamic that MAIA has been able to explore much more in a partnership with particularly three other organizations here that focus on Indigenous women in Guatemala. We call this group the Colectivo. And as a group of four, it's so much easier to go to one donor and say, hey, we'd love to have a really honest conversation. We have really similar aims. We're very complementary. We all really believe firmly in Indigenous staff. Can we talk honestly with you? That's been our best way, I think, of really modeling this, is in collaboration with other organizations. And it really does define many more ways our partnerships. Are you an abundance mindset organization? Are you willing to believe that there's more than that donation on the table, that if we work together we could deepen that well? Or are you just going to kind of elbow us out of the way and grab it off the table and run? And I've seen a lot of growth among organizations in my career over the couple decades that I've been doing this. It's tremendously different now. It's still there, but it's come a long, long way. So I think in terms of sharing that out, it's really just testing it out together with others, because it's a lot easier to do it with a couple other organizations than to do it solo.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I can see you've both learned so much from these years of experience. And I guess as we get closer to the end of the program, is there one piece of advice that you would give to other nonprofits that face the similar challenges and you just don't want to see it continue. But if you can kind of narrow it down, what would you say? I'll start with you, Trevor.
I go back to one of the first questions you asked me, Carol, which is at the very beginning, where I was talking about some of those seemingly immobile objects, and that they're boulders, they move, and some of them actually aren't that heavy. And so I think the surprise for me along this way is that the idea of really handing over the reins of the organization to Indigenous women. It's the right thing to do. It feels so good. It feels like exactly like, why isn't everyone else doing this? And
it's trust, right? I mean, it's a trust issue, I believe.
Absolutely. And a learning opportunity. And I think giving the benefit of the doubt to our donors in that sense. Like, yeah, our donors used to hearing from a person like me from Colorado? Sure. Do I think they're going to way prefer to talk to someone like Lydia? Absolutely. Like, are you kidding me? Like that, like no brainer. Like you just really want to. So what's holding us back? I think that's the question, and nothing is the answer that so far. So I guess my surprise is like, it's a lot more agile than it ever seemed.
Anything you wanted to add, Lydia?
Yeah, I think mine is a little bit different, but perhaps applies mainly in Guatemala. But I definitely see for the sustainability of organization, it makes so much sense to have people like locally, because that's the people who care for the place where they grew up, for the country, and it doesn't mean like we don't need like foreigners, or we cannot help each other. But I think just for the long run, yeah, you really need to think about how the program can exist and be successful, even if you're not around. And that means like by building capacity on the newer generation. And we're just so happy to see, like now, I think 40% of our team are the graduates, former graduates of the program, like the early first program. So it's much easier because they understand that the concept behind it, what we want to achieve. So it's been I think from this perspective, I have a lot of trust that they are growing, and eventually they will be like leading these spaces as well. And it's just a matter of time, like building a little bit more of capacity, investing, having more trainings. And I think that's also a fear from any perspective, because like it's really hard for us sometimes to be like, we don't want to be male. But yes, a lot of the examples are from male leadership, especially in Guatemala. So very few female leadership. So it's really hard to be like, to try to know who your style will be or what your leadership would be. And it just matters of also like wearing your own shoes, you're having your own size. But yes, so it takes like this efforts from different parties, like that team, the community, and the donors that are very key allies to the work that we do, no matter where.
Awesome. I like that. Wear your own shoes. Isn't that cool, Wendy?
It's beautiful. And, both of you, this has been a beautiful conversation. It's been really kind of life-changing for me to like learn about your organization and learn it from various different perspectives about the girls, about the Indigenous leadership, even about the victim hero complex, which really struck a chord with me. I can really understand how that happens, especially coming from a place of privilege in the Western world and trying to reach out and do good. And so I thank you both from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of Carol's hearts, for joining this conversation with us. What I'm really excited about is by having this conversation, we're actually able to share this experience and this knowledge with a huge global community. And I think that's going to be one of the most exciting outcomes of this. I would like to share my screen again for that global community, because I would like to invite everyone to learn more about MAIA. This is MAIA's Instagram account, Facebook. This is their website where you can sign up to get a regular newsletter, to donate. I've signed up for myself, and I'm really starting to learn to love like getting information about what's going on and stories about the girls and stuff. So I think it is just absolutely a beautiful, beautiful thing. So please learn more about MAIA and reach out. Also, in addition to MAIA, just to close out, if anything about this program has struck a chord with you and you're interested, this is information about how to join the Healthcare Business Women's Association, how to get involved with the We Give Back program. And we would love to continue to amplify our voices by having new members join. So thank you so much for your time and listening to this panel. And I wish everyone a good morning, a good evening, a good afternoon, whatever it happens to be for you.